This is class 6th English Literature. Welcome, students. Today we will start with the new chapter in literature, The Lost Child. This is chapter 5. Now, this story, The Lost Child, is the story of a child who was lost in a fair. It is written by Mulk Raj Anand, who was a prominent Indian writer who wrote several novels, short stories, and essays. The Lost Child is a short story published in 1934. The story is set in a village fair. It revolves around a child who gets lost in pursuit of finding different things. Anand shows the struggle the child goes through in the village fair. The story ends by giving a message regarding the true value of parents. Now, you must be aware what a village fair is. It is a fair which happens in a village, a fete where different things are sold, and you also have the swings and other merry-go-rounds, and people enjoy, and all kinds of different interesting items are sold in one place. It was the festival of spring. From the wintry shades of narrow lanes and alleys emerged a gaily clad humanity. That means so many people were gathering up, all dressed up in different colors. Some walked, some rode on horses, others sat, being carried in bamboo and bullock carts. So during the village of those times, that is pre-independence time, when India was not independent, in a village normally you could find bullock carts and bamboos and all being carried. One little boy between his father's legs brimming over with life and laughter. Come, child, come, call his parents, as he lagged behind, fascinated by the toys in the shops that lined the way. He hurried towards his parents, his feet obedient to their call, his eyes still lingering on the receding toys. So the small child was walking along with his parents, and he was attracted by the different kinds of lovely toys which the shops were selling. And he went on looking at them as he was moving along with his parents. As he came to where they had stopped to wait for him, he could not suppress his desire, even though he well knew the old cold stare of refusal in their eyes. I want that toy, he pleaded. His father looked at him red eyed, in his familiar tyrant's way. His mother, melted by the free spirit of the day, was tender, and giving him her finger to hold, said, Look, child, what is before you? It was a flowering mustard field, pale like melting gold as it swept across miles and miles of even land. So, when the child asked for the toy, his parents did not want to give him. So, the mother showed him the mustard field. You must have seen the mustard field full of yellow colored flowers. A group of dragonflies were bustling about on their gaudy purple wings, intercepting the flight of a lone black bee or butterfly in search of sweetness from the flowers. So bees and butterflies and dragonflies were all flying over the mustard field. The child followed them in the air with his gaze, till one of them would still its wings and rest, and he would try to catch it. But it would go fluttering, flapping up into the air where he had almost caught it in his hands. So the little child tried to catch the butterflies and the bees when they stopped flapping, but he could not. Then his mother gave a cautionary call, Come, child, come, come, on to the footpath. He ran towards his parents gaily and walked abreast of them for a while, being, however, soon left behind, attracted by the little insects and worms along the footpath that were teeming out from their hiding places to enjoy the sunshine. So small insects were coming out of their uh, holes and hiding places to enjoy the sunshine. And this little child was attracted by those insects. Come, child, come, his parents called from the shade of a grove where they had seated themselves on the edge of a well. So there was a grove, that is a small group of trees. So on the shade of the grove, the parents were seated, and they again started calling their child who was left behind. He ran towards them. A shower of young flowers fell upon the child as he entered the grove, and forgetting his parents, he began to gather the raining petals in his hands. So, flowers were falling on him from when he entered the grove, the group of trees, and he started picking up the petals of those flowers. But lo, he heard the cooing of doves and ran towards his parents, shouting, "The dove, the dove!" The raining petals dropped from his forgotten hands. Then the cooing of the dove was heard, and the child was very, very happy to hear the cooing of the dove, and ran towards his parents to make them notice. "Come, child, come," they called to the child, who had now gone running in wild capers around the banyan tree, and gathering him up, they took the narrow, winding footpath which led to the fair through the mustard fields. So, through the mustard fields, there was a path which led to the village fair. So, his parents took him along that path. As they neared the village, the child could see many other footpaths full of throngs converging to the whirlpool of the fair, and felt at once repelled and fascinated by the confusion of the world he was entering. So, all small footpaths and roads were leading to the fair, and crowds of people were entering the fair, which made the child more fascinated, and he was confused. A sweetmeat seller hawked gulab jamun, rasgulla, barfi, jalebi at the corner of the entrance, and a crowd pressed round his counter at the foot of an architecture of many colored sweets, decorated with the leaves of silver and gold. The child stared open eyed, and his mouth watered for the barfi that was his favorite sweet. Now, this little boy loved to eat the barfi, so he could notice it at the sweet meat shop. "I want that Burfi," he slowly murmured, but he half knew that he begged that his plea would not be heeded because his parents would say he was greedy. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. A flower seller hawked a garland of gulmohar. The child seemed irresistibly drawn. He went towards the basket where the flowers lay, heaped and half murmured, "I want that garland." But he well knew his parents would refuse to buy him those flowers because they could say that they were cheap. So again, after the sweets, he noticed the garlands and the flowers, and he wanted those garlands. But again, he knew that his parents would refuse. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. A man stood holding a pole with yellow, red, green, and purple balloons flying from it. So there was the balloon seller with all colors, balloons of all colors. The child was simply carried away by the rainbow glory of their silken colors, and he was filled with an overwhelming desire to possess them all. Now the child desired to own all the balloons. But he well knew his parents would never buy him the balloons because they would say he was too old to play with such toys. So he walked on further. So all the different things, attractive things he saw, he wanted to buy them, he wanted to have them. But he knew that his parents would not allow. A snake charmer stood playing a flute to a snake which coiled itself in a basket, its head raised in a graceful bend like the neck of a swan, while the music stole into its invisible ears like the gentle rippling of an invisible waterfall. Now there was the snake charmer, and he was playing the flute, and the sound of the flute was attracting the snake. The child went towards the snake charmer, but knowing his parents had forbidden him to hear such coarse music as the snake charmer played, he proceeded further. So the child also wanted to see the snake, but he remembered that his parents had forbidden him not to hear to the music of the snake charmer. So he moved on further. There was a roundabout in full swing. Men, women, and children, carried away in a whirling motion, shrieked and cried with dizzy laughter. So there was a merry-go-round which was moving round and round, and all those people who were seated on the merry-go-round were enjoying themselves. The child watched them intently, and then he made a bold request. "I want to go on the roundabout, please." "Father, mother," there was no reply. He turned to look at his parents. They were not there. Ahead of him, He turned to look on either side. They were not there. So, as he was watching the merry-go-round, he felt that he wanted to sit on it. So, he turned towards his parents to ask them for their permission. But then he noticed that his parents were not there. And he turned all around to see, and he could not see them anywhere. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. A full, deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear, "Mother, father." So suddenly he realized that his parents were not there, and so he started crying loudly, and tears went rolling down his eyes. Tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. His flushed face was convulsed with fear. Now he became terribly afraid, and his face became red. Panic stricken, he was now in panic. He ran to one side first, then to the other, hither and thither, in all directions, knowing not where to go. Now he ran everywhere in all directions, and he didn't know what to do and where to look for his parents. "Mother, father," he wailed. His yellow turban came untied, and his clothes became muddy. Now the turban which he was tying on his head, that also opened up, and his clothes became all soiled and muddy. Having run to and fro in a rage of running for a while, he stood defeated, his cries suppressed into sobs. So earlier he was wailing loudly, but running here and there, he became tired, exhausted, and now he started sobbing. At little distances on the green grass he could see, through his filmy eyes, men and women talking. He tried to look intently among the patches of bright yellow clothes, but there was no sign of his father and mother among these people. So there were people all around, and people were sitting on the ground, and among those people he tried to peep in and see if he could notice his parents, but he couldn't see neither his father nor his mother, who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. He ran quickly again, this time to a shrine to which people seemed to be crowding. So he ran towards a holy place which was over there, and people were crowding that place. Every little inch of space here was congested with men, but he ran through people's legs, his little sob lingering, "Mother, father." Near the entrance to the temple, however, the crowd became very thick. Men jostled each other, heavy men with flashing murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. So people were jostling each other to get into the temple. So it was really crowded. The poor child struggled to thrust a way between their feet, but knocked to and fro by their brutal movements, he might have been trampled underfoot had he not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice, "Father, mother." So he also tried to get into the crowd, and he was nearly saved from being trampled. A man in the surging crowd heard his cry, and stooping with great difficulty, lifted him up in his arms. "How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you?" the man asked as he steered clear of the mass. So suddenly a gentleman noticed him, and he picked him up and asked him that where were his parents, whose child he was. The child wept more bitterly than ever now, and only cried, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man tried to soothe him by taking him to the roundabout. "Will you have a ride on the horse?" he gently asked as he approached the ring. So the man tried to, uh, you know, console him, and took him towards the swing, and asked that whether he wanted to ride on the horse over there. But the child went on sobbing, went on crying. The child's throat tore into 1,000 shrill sobs, and he only shouted, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man headed towards the place where the snake charmer still played on the flute to the swaying cobra. So the gentleman took the child to the snake charmer. "Listen to that nice music, child," he pleaded. But the child shut his ears with his fingers and shouted his double pitched strain, "I want my father, I want my mother." But now, when this man took the child to the snake charmer, the child was no more interested in seeing the snake or listening to the music. Now he wanted his mother and father only. The man took him near the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloons would distract the child's attention and quieten him. Would you like a rainbow colored balloon? He persuasively asked. So he was taken to the balloon seller. Here also, the child was not interested at all. The child turned his eyes with the flying balloons and just sobbed, I want my mother, I want my father. The man, still trying to make the child happy, bore him to the gate where the flower seller sat. Look, can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put round your neck? The child turned his nose away from the basket and reiterated his sob. So the man took him to the flower seller also, and earlier the same flowers which were attracting him, the same garlands which he wanted to wear. Now he was not attracted towards those flowers anymore, and he again went on reiterating. That is, he went on repeating that he wanted his mother and father. Thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by a gift of sweets, the man took him to the counter of the sweet shop. What sweets would you like, child? He asked. The child turned his face from the sweet shop and only sobbed, I want my mother, I want my father. So after this, the man took him to the sweet shop, and here also the child did not want any sweet. He only wanted his mother and father. So earlier, all those things, the flowers and the garlands and the snake charmer, the toys and sweets, and the butterflies and insects and all the things which were attracting the child, which he wanted he could to have. Now, nothing was attracting him. He didn't want anything, and he wanted only his mother and his father. So, this story ends with a value, it ends with a lesson. And the lesson is that in this world, what is most important for one's life is his or her parents. And this story conveys the value of a mother and a father. When mother and father are not there, then everything is useless. So, this is what the story is about. I hope you must have understood the story and see how nicely and how clearly and vividly the writer has given a picture of the village fair. So, this is what the story is about. That's all for today. Thank you.